How do you live tax-free in Europe? We're going to run down all the ways to do it in this video. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and for a lot of new Nomad Capitalists and some older Nomad Capitalists, the idea of living in Europe is really exciting. Those of us who grew up, for example, in the United States, romanticized the idea of living in Europe. It was a dream for a lot of people. And so when you have the opportunity to live wherever you want, a lot of people like the idea of Europe and the cobblestone streets and all the different places that you can go. The challenge with Europe, of course, is that a lot of countries in Europe, in fact, most of them have rather high headline tax rates. They also have higher regulations that make it difficult to do business, more strict tax codes that make it more difficult to be a nomad capitalist. And if you're not European, then there are higher investment requirements for you to become a resident or become a citizen of a European country. So Europe is a bit more difficult. And as you'll see in this video, most of the ways to live either tax-free or low tax in Europe are through special exemptions, special programs, loopholes, things like that. Now, there's one tax-free country in Europe. You've heard of it. It is Monaco. And you can become a resident of Monaco. It requires over €1 million investment on paper, but practically speaking, it's going to require you to invest millions of euros if you want to buy a home and put money in the bank. And so this is something for the ultra high net worth individual. It's also that way because you go there and you spend 39 euros for a hamburger. That's just inescapable. And they actually do require you to spend part of your year living in Monaco. You can't just put down your bags and claim tax status in Monaco. But if you're looking for that great European lifestyle, you want to be on the water, you want great restaurants, you want high level of service, then Monaco is a very appealing option, and you've got a lot of Europe at your fingertips. The other tax-free option that I think a lot of people overestimate is Portugal. Now, Portugal has a non-habitual resident tax regime where you can get a 10-year exclusion on some kinds of income. Now, there are certain things that you need to pay attention to. For example, where's your company based? Where's the director of that company? What kind of income do you have? And so there's a lot of tax planning involved. I think people just think, oh, I just go to Portugal, everything's exempt, there are no rules. That's not the case. But if you structure your affairs properly, meaning it's more expensive, right? Anytime there's more tax planning, it becomes more expensive. You can structure a lot of different types of income to be run through the Portugal scheme, and you can pay potentially a little bit of tax, potentially zero tax. It's not a zero tax country. The tax regime doesn't last forever. After 10 years, you got to figure something else out. But it's at least a way to be able to live in Europe for 10 years. And you can do that through a Portugal residence program or a Portugal golden visa program. Now, when we started the video, I said most of the ways to live tax-free in Europe were actually exclusions or exemptions. Let's go through a few of those. Georgia, for example, has what's called a territorial tax system. Foreign source income isn't taxed, local source income is taxed. Now, if you're running your business, this again requires some planning because if you're sitting there running the business, right, you're sitting there as the director of your company, the owner of your company, the one doing the most important work or all of the work, then there's some planning that needs to be done around this. But in theory, you can live in Georgia tax-free if your money is all overseas. I think actually a lot of people think that my interest in Georgia many years ago was in the tax policy. My interest was actually in all the reforms and the investment and business opportunities that was creating. But when I got there, the tax policy was also a nice to have. Let's talk about, though, perhaps the most common way in Europe that you can get by paying a rather low rate of taxation if you are the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur that we talk about. And that is what's called the flat tax. There are different versions of this. Switzerland, you may have heard of, has a lump sum tax where they calculate it based on the value of the home that you're living in. You've got to pay a flat tax. Italy now has a €100,000 flat tax. Other territories like Gibraltar, Jersey, Guernsey have tax systems where you can pay a certain minimum tax. Malta actually has a program like this as well, where again there's going to be proper planning. You're basically paying a flat fee to live there, and you need to make sure all of your affairs are in order. Again, there are some rules that need to be followed, but with proper planning, you can pay a flat fee. So it could be £29,000, could be 100,000 euros, could be some other number. Now, is this tax-free? No, but I do look at it as kind of like a donation for the privilege of living there, because you're also getting a residence permit in many cases. You know, if I, as a foreigner, want to go and live in Gibraltar, for example, you know, any country may have some kind of requirement for me to get in and to live there. You know, it might be in the case of the Thai elite visa, you know, you pay $15,000, $16,000 for one person for 5 years. Europe is a bit more expensive, but I kind of look at it the same way. It's more of a price of entry rather than a tax. And then, of course, you have what's called the non-dom programs that can potentially, again, lots of different conditions to satisfy, could potentially substantially lower your tax bill in countries like the UK and Ireland, in Cyprus and Malta. What you are often going to need to do in Europe is choose, do I want to be a citizen of this country, or do I want to pay less in taxes? It's really hard to get both. There are a few countries where you can get the best of both worlds, but generally speaking, you need to have your other citizenship. So, you know, if you're a U.S. citizen, you know, you're probably, and you want to live somewhere in Europe and take advantage of one of these schemes, you're probably going to stay a U.S. citizen, or you need to get your second passport elsewhere. Another tax opportunity is what's called non-dom status. Certain countries that had ties to the United Kingdom have this kind of tax system. The UK, Ireland, Malta, Cyprus have variations on this kind of system. Again, there are some rules. It's a bit more complicated, but potentially you can live in one of these countries. You're usually not going to be able to qualify for citizenship, so if your goal is to live in Ireland and spend time there but not pay tax, but also become a citizen, that's going to be very difficult to do. But you can spend some time in these countries. You can live in Europe and get a more favorable tax climate. And the last way to save on taxes in Europe is go to a country that has a less strict tax code. So this means most of Europe is out, because most of Europe, and especially the European Union, has really dialed in, basically closing off all the exits. However, there are countries like Montenegro where the tax code is a bit more flexible, and you can potentially exclude a lot of your foreign income. So you might pay tax on your salary, but you might not pay tax on the actual income in your business. And so, you know, if you're the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur, let's say you have, you know, $1 million in profit or €1 million in profit, you might pay yourself a salary that's a small fraction of that, 100,000 euros, 120,000 euros. And that would be taxed at a low rate, 9% in Montenegro. A lot of the Balkans have flat rates of 15% for lower salaries. So the rates aren't terrible to begin with, and you can kind of have control over your tax base. Not tax-free way to live, but a very low tax way to live. And so that would probably be my approach in Europe. I'd be focused more on, if I'm going to go to Europe, for the average person who's not going to Monaco, who doesn't want to live there, can't afford to live there, whatever, I'm probably going to be focused on paying a little something. I'm not going to be going to Europe in most cases and expecting to get out scot-free. But if I can lower my tax rate from 40 or 45% where I'm at now, I can set up shop somewhere else, have the privileges of living in Europe, and maybe I'm paying somewhere in the single digits. To me, that would be pretty successful. So tax-free in Europe, more difficult, is possible, but it's going to limit your options. Low tax, probably a better strategy for the average person.
Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.